Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Dan, and Harry. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Sunday evening after Liverpool have now put themselves 8 points clear at the top of the Premier League table, where everybody's heads fell off at halftime, and not shortly after halftime, everybody just lost the run of themselves. But Mo Salah, as he always has done over the last number of games, has saved our graces, shall we say. It's probably the best way to look at it. But it was a bit of a roller coaster of a game. I know we had our post game stream where we were discussing it earlier, but we'll get into the game in a little bit more depth now, and obviously some post game comments in relation to Szoboszlai and in relation to Arne Slot as well. But I just throw it over to the panel to see what everybody else thought. Harry, how did you find the game? And was it a game? Was it a game of two halves? And obviously all them other regular cliches and monikers that we normally do see with games like this, that it just so happens to just it was an ugly win is the way I describe it. How would you describe it, Harry?
Yeah, I'd say the exact same. It was a very difficult watch. I think it's another case of the international break breaking our stride and our form, and it was a tough watch, but they got the job done in the end, so we can't have any complaints about that. And yeah, in the end, it turned out all right.
Yeah, it did, and it could have gone wrong in many, many ways, Dan. But Southampton thankfully shot themselves in the foot three times to allow us. First of all, the first goal, Szoboszlai slotting a beautiful left footer curled around in off the post that some people that don't like to give praise to our players said he nearly missed, but we won't name names. And obviously then we had Mo Salah's goal with an absolute horror mistake from McCarthy, and then obviously the handball in the 83rd minute, which led to Mo Salah's penalty. Was this a case of Southampton beat themselves, or was this a case of Liverpool relentless with pressure that led to these Southampton mistakes, or is it a little bit of both?
I mean, it's definitely a little bit of both. I mean, the rule of thumb in footy is that you either, when you score a goal, you either did something brilliant or the opponent did something stupid. And most cases, it's a little bit of both, where you've done something really, really well. Like, for instance, the Szoboszlai goal, where, it's just a bad pass and he immediately shoots it off his left foot. There are so many games that you can watch where a player will shoot it and it'll just go wide, or it'll be like a missed chance. Like, there are so many in the Liverpool catalog. I think I remember one that Firmino did a bunch of those before, where he would get a deflection and it would just go wide, or Jota as well. I mean, this is the thing about Southampton, is that Southampton are a team very much like Burnley, where Russell Martin has them playing a very certain way, which leaves them very open. And so it was always most likely going to happen. They were going to shoot themselves in the foot. It just so happens that Liverpool decided to also decided to not let them feel alone, and we decided to shoot ourselves in the foot twice. Though, granted, I would say that the penalty was not a penalty because it was outside the box, and the second goal is just there are just so many problems with it all around from multiple players on that team. So I think it's more the fact that it just shows that, like I said yesterday on the yesterday stream, if Liverpool turn up, they'll win the game. And when Liverpool turned up, they actually won the game. In the last 30 minutes, I wouldn't even call it a game of two halves. It's more of a game of 30 to 20 minute sections, where the first 20, it's a bit sloppy, but Liverpool are definitely the better team. They get the goal at the 30-minute mark. 10 minutes later, Southampton get the penalty and then the equalizer, and then they look dangerous. Go into the second half, Liverpool come out sloppy. Southampton are still dangerous at times, and Liverpool seem to be in control. They score a counter-attack goal, and then Liverpool, after the 60-minute mark to the end, are pretty much there's only going to be one winner. So it was a very weird game to watch, because I was never worried about losing to Southampton, because I always thought we'd have enough to beat them. I was just worried that we'd run out of time to get that third goal, especially once they went 2-1 up. But hey, well, I'll take it. Considering how the last time we lost after the national break was Forest, and that was a game where no one played well the entire game. This is juxtaposed against it. This is where individual players didn't play well for 20 or 30 minutes, but when they did play well for 10 to 15, they made it count, which is something we didn't have against for Forest when we dropped points there. And even at Arsenal for a bit, where we'd have some people would throw some stinkers in, but then when we actually played well for 20 to 30 minutes, we actually won.
Yeah, To me, it was very similar as well. Like, I know we say a game of two halves. Obviously, first half was very sort of back and forth a little bit, but it really was sort of, as you mentioned, that game, a game of 30-minute segments. So there was the first 30 minutes, and then there was the 15 minutes before halftime, the 15 minutes after halftime, and then it was obviously the final 30 minutes then. I'd look at it a very similar way. We were very much on top for that first 30 minutes after maybe 5-10 minutes of Southampton being quite good. And then after that, it was just all Liverpool. And then Southampton get the dodgiest of penalties that I've ever seen in my life. And is it really much of a coincidence that we see it's Michael Oliver on VAR and it's the day after Man City drop points? Same thing happened last season when it was VAR and Michael Oliver said that it was not a goal. I'm nearly sure it was Michael Oliver on VAR for that Luis Diaz decision. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And he was just back for, or no, he was an official. I think he was reffing the game rather than on VAR.
Darren England was the VAR assistant. Oliver was the fourth official. With Hooper was the ref at that moment.
Yeah. All of which had just come back from a lovely staycation in Saudi Arabia a couple of days prior, and a nice 20 grand bonus into their bank account. So clearly Michael Oliver was working for his Christmas bonus tonight. Stitches, you were on earlier with our post game, but there was, I'll say heated debate is probably the best way to describe how our group chat kind of went down in relation to that penalty. It was very much, nobody was on the fence. You were one side or the other, and everybody had to go at each other over it. I didn't view it as a penalty. The contact was made outside of the box. And unless I'm completely thick, which is a very high probability, I don't understand how that can then be given as a penalty when the foul was initiated outside the box, because I've never seen a rule come into play or it be ruled that way, that if that's the case, why are fouls called back to the initial spot, and if a foul is continued for 5 or 6 yards, why is it not taken at the most advanced position? That's the part of it that I like. If it continues into the box, why is it then a penalty when the initial foul started outside the box? It's a strange one.
It's weird to me, and let me caveat this by saying I have a level 1 coaching, FA coaching badge, and as part of that course, you have to do a refereeing course. And I have never ever heard a rule that states that you give a free kick or a penalty or a sanction because the foul carries on. That has to be a new rule that I've never ever heard of, and I'm old enough to have gone back to be a couple of or 3 decades older than most people on the chats. I've never heard that rule. I've always heard the rule that if there's a foul given and the referee tries to play an advantage, he goes back to the spot of the original infringement. That's the only rule that I know of. I don't know, and I know that there have been iterations and changes have been made, but I've never heard a rule that states that the foul carried on into the penalty area. There's actually an argument to say the foul was on Robbo. If you watch the stills, Robbo actually gets there outside the box, and then the player carries on through Robbo's leg, which could be deemed a foul by the attacking player. Nevertheless, I never in a million years thought they were going to give a penalty. I thought, clear cut, it's going to be a free kick on the edge of the box at worst. To then hear them say it was a penalty kick, shocking to me, absolutely shocking. But then when I rationalize it and I think about it, they've been tap dancing to justify free kicks. And I actually now think that the media and some of the pundits are actually complicit in this, because the lack of discussion over that decision. I was listening on a stream. I'm not going to incriminate myself, but let's just say we had an ex-Red on the show, Steve McManaman, who felt, he was happy with it being a free kick, but I've gotten used to his commentary being very negative towards us. I've gotten used to Jamie Carragher's recent times, his commentary being very negative towards us. I've also gotten used to the defensiveness whenever there's scrutiny on refereeing decisions that are controversial, especially where Liverpool's concerned, and we raise the question, which actually just makes me think the whole thing's even more corrupt than I think it is. And I've just, there's so many examples, but one that stark to me is, if you recall the Tottenham game, which was the worst crime against football that I've ever seen in terms of refereeing. One of the justifications given was that the VAR informed the on-field referee 30 seconds after the incident and play had continued and they couldn't go back by those 30 seconds. Fast forward a week or 2 weeks after that, we're in a cup match. We do commit, Quansah does commit a foul on the edge of the box, but a play goes on for another 2.5 minutes, whereby we then score a goal, only for VAR to then turn around and cancel the goal out, saying that there was a foul committed 2.5 minutes before. So the point of me giving this example is simply to say I've gotten used to all the mental tap dancing that happens to try and justify criminal decisions that are made against us in the game. And, you know, there'll be people listening to this who are rival fans that are always the victims. You're always the victims and play that card. And that's fine. But what you have to realize is that at some point, you're going to have to stand in solidarity with us, because the level of refereeing is so terrible that it really doesn't matter if it's Liverpool. It's happening to so many other teams that there has to be some kind of scrutiny on refereeing in the league, because it's so bad. And people get on this bandwagon of blaming VAR and saying, oh, it's VAR's ruined the game and this, that, and the other. And my argument against that is VAR came into play because refereeing was so bad, right? And all VAR is technology that allows you to go back in a point in time and take a closer look so that you can get the right decision. But the problem is you've got the crazy people running the asylum, because you've got the referees who were bad originally making decisions on VAR. They're still making bad decisions. So all you've done is you've given more scrutiny. You've let us see exactly how bad they are. And there's nothing being done about it, and you can't question them, because the moment you do, the football fraternity circles wagons and says, oh, you can't question them. And it's a bit of arrogance in the English game, because we've had referees being corrupt in Italy. We've had referees being corrupt in Spain. We've had it in Germany. So why can it not happen in England? Why can it not happen? And the question everyone forgets to ask about this referee that's under scrutiny at the moment is that if he's doing all of these things and people have evidence of him doing all of these things, he can easily be, he can be manipulated to give certain decisions, to do certain things so that people can go and put bets on. Even if it's as simple as giving a red card within the 60 to 70th minute, someone can make a lot of money from that. And they've got all this evidence of it, and nobody wants to ask that question. All they say is, just because one bad referee, you can't ask the question, you can't be corrupt. But as you mentioned, these guys, before the Tottenham game, they flew to, was it Abu Dhabi or wherever, and they were given brown envelopes of money. And then the very next day, they're here in our league refereeing a game, even though the 2 days before, 24 hours before, they were refereeing a game for people who own a club in the Premier League. Do you not see the conflict of interest there? So I know I've gone round the houses, and that's because I've got to be in my bonnet about this. It's something that I to a certain extent view football a bit like WWE right now. I just feel like it's fixed, right? And if we're going to win the league, we'll have to do it despite the PGMOL, because you can see there were some shocking decisions today. I love Adam Lallana, by the way. I don't think Adam Lallana is a malicious or violent player of any kind, but he made a terrible tackle today. He left the ground. He didn't take due care of the opponent. He completely missed the ball. He went studs up quite high into the standing foot of the player, and VAR didn't even look at it. Didn't even look at it. Yep. And I'm just like, I've seen Curtis Jones get sent off for worse. I've seen Jota for less. I've seen Jota get sent off for less. I've seen McAllister get sent off for less, but they didn't even scrutinize it. And the question is why? And why is the media not holding them to account for these things? So I don't know. I smell a rat, and it's just terrible. It's terrible.
No, I agree with you. It is terrible, and it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the people using it. As you said, it's the lunatics running the insane asylum, and it's the problem is that you're self-policing bad referees with their mates that they're all in a union with, and that's basically a big issue with that myself. Yeah. Harry, like that penalty decision, because similarly later on in the game, Kelleher cleaned out Armstrong in what was a 50-50 ball, and that happened within the box. And as Stitches mentioned, the attacker went through the defender, in this case the goalkeeper, and a free kick was given to Kelleher. So it's nearly the inverse decision as to what happened with Robertson, considering he was there first and the Southampton player went through Robbo. Now, the issue that I have with it myself personally is that the technology isn't the issue. And I said it when it came in, and this was way before I joined the channel, that they will purposefully misuse VAR in the hopes that it'll get thrown out. But obviously that hasn't happened yet. And as well, this one that Stig mentions here, McAllister got horse-collared inside the box and not a thing was ever said about it. He just got grabbed by the back of the collar and he fell down. Harry, how did you view the officiating in this game? Because personally, I thought it was dismal. And especially following the whole David Coote scenario and how referees can be seen to be biased, they really haven't showered themselves in many good graces after this game either, have they?
No, not. I don't think any of them know which rules to go by. I think they all have a different idea of what decision to make in a certain scenario. I think the whole thing around the penalty for Southampton was, it was almost impossible to tell whether Robertson was on the line, and then if he's the one making the foul and he's on the line, is it a penalty? I don't know the rules, so I can't comment and say I know what I'm talking about. And then
it's not if a foul happens on the box, it's not considered inside the box. The line itself is a soft line. It's not a hard line. So if the foul even happened on the line itself, it's still considered outside the box.
Right. Okay. That's fair enough then, because they were saying then they're not sure. If they're unsure, they have to just stick with the decision. And I was like, okay. I didn't really know what was going on. And the Kelleher one, I just don't think Armstrong had anywhere to go. He was sort of just forced into it. I did think at first, I thought it was a bit similar to Sanchez on Jones, if I remember correctly. It was sort of similar, and then it's different every week. And I think they just need to set out a clear set of rules, have them all sit down, get told exactly what's what, because it seems like there's not a lot of cohesion going on. But I thought that he was very card happy as well, the ref. I thought he was very happy to get his cards out. But overall,
can I just throw in a couple of things, Harry? Just sorry to take your limelight.
It's okay.
Why does it work so well in Europe? We have to ask ourselves that question.
Well, it doesn't.
I'll tell you why.
It doesn't. They have their own problems. Their Stitches too. I mean, like there is so many. If you watch Bundesliga or Serie A or La Ligue 1 or La Liga, like you still see a lot of the same problems. The only big difference I would say is that between English referees and the ones abroad is that it feels equally bad across the board. Like if you look at some of the decisions,
there's a consistency.
They're consistently bad decisions. But I do think that the consistency level is a little bit higher, but they still suffer from the same problems. Because they're mates and they cover each other's backs. I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was actually referring to European competition. So when we watched the champions, the new Champions League, and we watched stuff.
Do you want to know why? Because the referee isn't from the same country as the two teams playing. So if it's a Spanish team and an English team, it's a German referee. If it's an Italian team and an English team, it's a Spanish referee. This would be my fix.
Yeah.
UEFA basically turns around and takes over the whole lot and says, no, we're having a full one. It's Europe. If you want to play in UEFA competitions, you're going to stick by this. And this is how the rules are going to work. No referee is going to lose a job. Everybody's going to stay the same. However, English referees aren't allowed ref English games. German referees aren't allowed ref German games. Switch them. So you have English referees spread all across Europe. You have German, Spanish, Italian, French referees all reffing in England. There's no allegiance, because no matter what you say, I don't care if Howard Webb says he's an Accrington Stanley fan. No, he's not. He is a Man United fan, and he can lie whatever way he wants. There's no point. David Coote is another example. He can lie through his back teeth as much as he wants and says that he's a fucking a Walsall fan or a fucking Blackburn fan or whatever he wants to say. Or what's Salford? That's the team that's just outside United that the United boys own. He can say he's a Salford United fan if he wants, for all the love and the money in the world. But he is a Man United fan, and it's very clear and very evident, especially by the decisions that are made.
I also think that there's two things that make the English game, I'll add to my corrupt angle, right? This high bar, high threshold for VAR, and this clear and obvious. Because all that does is add ambiguity. It adds, the ability for someone to just guess. And whatever that decision is, they'll go, oh, well, there's a high bar. No one else uses that in their league. So all we're doing is we're saying we've got this tool that allows you to go back in time and place and see the right decision, but we still want these guys that are effing it up to have rules that allow them to just make decisions on the field that are incorrect. And it's just terrible. It's corrupt. It devalues the game completely, in my opinion. Sorry, Harry, I hijacked, but clearly you guys can see that I feel very strongly about this.
No,
tired of my team. Yeah, I'm tired of my
Harry,
team.
How would you fix it, Harry? Realistically, what would your opinion be on it to try and at least somewhat fix it?
It just needs a revamp. It needs all. I just think some of the rules are still outdated. I think it just needs to be redone, re-put together. Sit the referees down, tell them what's what. I don't know. That's probably all I've got to offer. But it just seems like it's all wishy-washy all the time.
Yeah, it's just, Dan, we see it over in American sports, like with baseball, with American football, with basketball. American football is probably the wrong one to use considering the Chiefs of late. But realistically, when it comes to video review and video-assisted refereeing or video-assisted officials, the American sports have it right in that it's in my opinion, they run it an awful lot better. There's an independent one. It's very similar to VAR in that I'll give you an example of in the NFL. The NFL, they have all the officials that are there and they'll just make a call. And there's certain times when the VAR can get involved and there's certain times when it can't. That needs to be the case with the Premier League. That it needs to be, VAR should only get involved in a red card offence, a yellow card offence to review it in case it needs to be upgraded to a red card offence. And that's just, every yellow card, right? What was that yellow card for? He's just breaking away. He's just stopping a breakaway play. Right, that's fine. We don't even need to review that. That's grand. What's that yellow card offence for? It looks like a high tackle. Right, we'll take 10 seconds and we'll review that really quickly and see if he needs to have a look at it. Every goal scored needs to be reviewed, and every penalty needs to be reviewed. Goal line technology and semi-automated offsides will take so much time away from VAR. It's nuts. The referee has a watch or an armband on him that it vibrates when it goes over a line. That technology should be stretched to every line around the pitch, so that the referee can know it. It'll avoid a situation like Arsenal against Newcastle where they thought it was out. And obviously the camera can't view the angle of a sphere not going over a line. But the referee, to the best of his ability, has a band on his arm that vibrates if the ball goes out. That needs to be stretched to every byline. And every penalty needs to be reviewed by VAR. If you do that, semi-automated offsides, goal line technology all the way around the pitch, VAR only intervenes in a yellow card offence that needs to be upgraded, a red card offence if it needs to be downgraded if the referee's seen it in a bad way, or a goal scored. That's it. That's only when VAR should be introduced. Stitches, what do you think that anything should be improved on that, or is that too much? Like,
Listen, it's very simple for me, right? We brought this technology in because referees are effing up, right?
Yeah.
I don't care who makes the decision, whether it's made by the on-field guy or by guys that are watching the situation over and over from different angles. Just get the right effing decisions, please, right? And I don't care. This precious thing about the decisions need to be made in real time by the referees on the pitch. That's just spurious. It's spurious. Remove the subjectivity out of all of this, right? You've got people, and they need to be qualified to use the equipment and qualified to understand the rules of the game. That's simple. So that doesn't have to be a referee. It could be an ex-footballer. It could be different people. But make sure that you get the right decision. You've got the technology. You can stop it. You can twist it around. You can have a look, and it doesn't need to take that long. But where you're waiting and thinking, oh, I don't want to make my mate on the pitch look bad, as referees have come out and said, because they've made the wrong decisions, but you don't want to make them look bad, which is corrupt in itself, and because you don't want to cause them controversy. That's bullshit. Just make the right decisions. It's simple. And tell him in his ear, you know what? That call was wrong. That should have been a red card. All this going over to have a look at a screen, 3 other people in a room somewhere else have done that. Why do you need the guy on the pitch to be the one? He's clearly missed it. Just give the right decisions. It's simple.
Yeah.
And you know, we're overcomplicating it.
So I think a few things. I think the review thing for the NFL is a good way to think about it, because yes, I think that with VAR, if you limit what they look at to a very select amount of things, so if you remove, say, offsides to make it semi-automatic offsides, unless the technology fails, you can do that. That's one thing. The second thing is that the referee shouldn't be the one making the decisions in there. Like, they can be in the room, but it should be a technical person saying, like, this is what it looks like. Can you confirm yes or no? Ref can say yes or no. Because in the NFL, I believe, and also in most sports, the people doing the review is a whole separate amount of people. They know what the rules are, but they're saying they'll say like, hey, you gave this call. This is what it looks like, X, Y, Z. So you remove that kind of self-policing that the referees have really had. For Stitches, for the subjectivity, I don't think that you're never going to remove subjectivity out of footy because it's just so fast. You can take away the subjectivity of, say, offsides to some degree, goal line technology. If it goes outside the boundaries of the field, you can remove subjectivity for that with technology. But with like what counts as a foul or not, like there is always going to be, like, some referees will say that it's like, yeah, you like if 2 players are grabbing each other's jerseys, that's like it cancels each other out, play on. You know, the subjectivity is what gives footy kind of its unique flair for the most part. But where I agree with him is that if you want to remove subjectivity in the sense of it just feels like a closed off group making decisions that they don't have to account for, I think you have to add accountability. So for me, it'd be more that the referees have to go and explain their decisions to the coaches, to the media, or to whoever, that they have to go out there and say, it's like, yeah, this is what I saw and I got it wrong. You know, the one thing we don't have with referees, I think they have it. Yeah, accountability, but this is what's interesting, because Mel Ray did a thing about this a couple years ago when they brought in VAR, with how refs have a very weird internal accountability thing where they look at like throw-ins and spots. Like, it's very like micro-analyzed accountability where like they are held to a certain standard, but it feels weirdly pedantic, and it feels very safe where it says we're internally accountable, but it's about very small micro decisions on a field of play, rather than saying, actually, we're going to be accountable by, like, yeah, I made this decision and I think I got it right. Or they could say, I got the decision and you know what? It was actually the wrong decision. And I think that referees would be much more sympathetic if they were kind of held to that standard. I mean, besides the fact that you stop getting referees from the greater Manchester area would probably help with that as well. Because I don't account to malice what can be prescribed to idiocy. And I think that for a lot of referees, it's not they're being intentionally malicious, or I believe that they believe they're not being intentionally malicious, but they do this, they make a rod for their own backs, because it's Howard Webb, who's, you know, not exactly a man without controversy, who's running this kind of closed shop behind doors. And the thing is, with any institution, especially one that's job is to arbitrate rules, the way that you endear yourself and make it better is that you come out and you put your hands up and you say, hey, this is a situation. Like, like Stitches, I did my coaching badges, I did refereeing courses, I referee before. Like, I've had to go to coaches and say, coach, I'm sorry. Like, it's like I get it, coach, but it's a foul. Like, it is what it is. Like, I could have called it earlier, but I was letting play go on, and it's a foul. So like, let's just all move on. And I feel like if you can deal with it that way, both as like an institutional level, like that kind of institutional belief, and stop trying to be like the headmaster in many ways, then I think I think you can get better referees overall. If you actually notice, like some of the best referees of all time, obviously the Italian one's the most famous one, but I forget his name off the top of my head, is that a lot. Yeah, they're just honest with what their decisions are. They're saying, that, hey, this was my decision. This is why I made a decision, and that's how it is. I mean, even for like English referees, who right now would be the best like Premier League referee? Because like as current Grop, who do you think is the most like fair? Because I think Chris Kavanagh tries to do. I think Chris Kavanagh is like decent. Like I think he admits he makes mistakes.
Like the bar isn't very high, and do you want to know what the problem is? And this is probably the biggest one of the lot. Name me a Spanish referee.
I only know the one that Pep Guardiola doesn't like.
Yeah, but name me one.
I can't. I know Felix.
Name me a German. Jimmy, name me a German referee.
There's the Felix guy who's a lawyer. I know him. That's
name
about
me
it.
Name me a French referee.
Can't do it.
Name me an Italian referee, not Collina.
Juventus.
Now name me English referees.
Oh, you could name a few.
Exactly.
Oliver Taylor.
That's exactly my point. The game that we played against Bayer Leverkusen was possibly the best officiated game I've ever seen. And people might turn around and say, that's because we beat them 4-0. Of course you're saying that. But my point of that it's a brilliantly officiated game, all the way up until that first goal, it was allowed to be physical. They allowed Victor Boniface to be physical with Van Dijk and with Konate, and he allowed the centre-backs to be physical back with him. And it made for beautiful defending and attacking play that you've seen two physical powerhouses going at it. They allowed the defenders to be physical. They allowed the attackers to be physical. They let physical play go on. And his name is I don't know his first name. I know his surname is Makaleli. And the only reason I know that is because somebody else said it. You can name 10 English referees because of the controversy. You can't name me referees from other countries because you've never heard them in controversy. Even if you only have watched the Champions League over the past 10 years, maybe outside of that Chelsea and Barcelona game, you can't really name me referees' names that have caused massive controversy. In England, you can name 10 to 20 of them. They feel, to me, they feel like they're more they want to be more celebrities than they actually are, and that causes a problem when you have Billy Big Bollocks walking around in a Premier League game, and somebody says something to him, or a foul happens, or the crowd, or somebody tells the referee from the crowd to get off his knees because he's blowing the game, whatever it may be, and he all of a sudden gets his feelings hurt, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to give your side any calls, and it's something along that, like. But this is my point. A German could probably name 10 refs there, and as Dan mentioned, it is that point that they're consistently the same, whereas it's a different decision every game, not even every week, every game here. Whereas in Germany or Spain or Italy or France, at least they'll get the same decision the same way, regardless of whether it's wrong or right, consistently. I don't care how good or bad the referees are. Just be consistent. So that way we know what to expect, and we're like, okay, we can at least garner our play to work around this and know, right, I don't need to do this because this will be given as this because it always has been given as this. It's just mind-numbingly frustrating when a penalty is called like that when it shouldn't have been called. And realistically, that was the only, other than their counter-attack, that's the only thing Southampton could really muster all game. And it made the game more than it should have been, really. And it's infuriating. And thank God Slot is bald, because he'll end up losing his hair before the end of this season anyway. But we're going to move on from referees, because we could be sat here talking about them for the next 2 hours. So make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. A question for the panel that's come in from Jay Muse here in relation to McAllister. I thought Mac had changed things when he came on for us. Slot's player management and subs continues to be spot on. Not only McAllister, but I thought not taking off Darwin Nunez massively benefited the side when Luis Diaz came on, and taking off Cody Gakpo, who in my opinion was on for a man of the match before Salah got his 2 goals. And I also just looked, and any of our FPL friends, Mo Salah didn't get 3 bonus points. It was given to Szoboszlai for some mad fucking reason. But we won't get into that. But I thought that substitution alone was probably masterful, purely because while some might disagree with me saying and Darwin didn't have anything to do during that game, he kept both centre-backs pinned and allowed the wings to be attacked consistently, which is what allowed Diaz to penetrate, which is what allowed Salah to penetrate, and it kept the back line honest and pinned back. And that's something that I don't think an awful lot of people are going to cop or notice, and they'll just look at the game and be like, oh, Darwin done nothing. And that's just not how football works. Harry, how did you view Slot's man management, his substitutions? Did you view the game changed when he made those substitutions with McAllister? How would you have taken off Darwin, or would you have left on Cody? How would you have done it differently, or do you think we got a spot on?
Yeah, I think his man management's been good all season. The players he's brought on, he always does it at the right time, and I think he picks the right players. I think McAllister came on and he picked up the ball in some really good spaces. I think he broke up the play really nicely. And I think at the time, I probably would have said, take Nunez off. Honestly, that's what I would have said, because it looked like he wasn't getting involved. I understand. And he was pressing really well, don't get me wrong. Gakpo looked really sharp. But in reality, Gakpo wouldn't have pressed them for the rest of the game like Darwin did. And Darwin ended up really unlucky not getting the assist for Diaz, when he squared it across. Like on another day, Diaz probably taps that and he just didn't get it quite right. And I think the substitution he's doing quite late, quite a lot now, is Endo for Nunez. He's done it a few times now. And I think it's a really good way of seeing the game out, because Endo comes on and he looks quite sharp. He breaks up the play the same way McAllister does, and he helps seize it out for us. So, yeah, I was really impressed with Slot again. I think I am every week, to be honest. Every time he makes substitutions, he seems to get it right. And, yeah, just so impressed with that.
Yeah, I was as well. It's the man management that, like, Stitches, we seen at the start of the season, people were concerned that he's overplaying players. But it's almost as if it was a feeling out process to see, okay, who can I rely on in what moments, and who can come on and do the job that I want them to do. And now it's being deployed in as best as it can be at the moment. How have you viewed his man management? Do you think he got the substitutes right today? Would you have kept Darwin on despite how quiet he was? Or, as we mentioned, is it more than just getting a goal or getting an assist from him, and how he's actually helping us going forward and back?
I think most people analyze the game in 2D, whereas Slot is playing 4D chess. When you watch the games, and it shows in his decision making. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to us, but it actually has the right impact. I actually think his substitutions today was spot on. The game, as I mentioned in the post-match analysis, for me, it became very end-to-end. And if you think about that, that suits Diaz to a T with regards to the transition play, how much ground he covers when he carries the ball, and the fact that you've got Darwin occupying the 2 centre-backs. And let's not get it twisted. He might not have got on the score sheet today, or people think he's not having enough shots on goal, but he's doing a job for the team out there, keeping those 2 centre-backs occupied, pulling them from pillar to post, creating spaces for others to run into, right? And that ball that he squared that Harry mentioned, if Diaz had put that away, it's a completely different conversation. It's fine margins. And I think, his passion, his hunger to go and put the goalkeeper under pressure, which caused the mistake to lead to the first goal. Everyone forgets, and people turn around and said he did nothing. And I often scratch my head thinking, are they watching the same game that I'm watching? To go back to Slot overall with his decision making, quite a few podcasts ago, at the beginning of the season, I made a claim. I said one of the biggest tasks and tests for Slot over the oncoming period, especially a period where we had a lot of games and we're going into 2 games, 3 games in a week, is going to be how he shuffles his deck and manages his team. And I've got to be honest, he's done it fantastically. He's quite ruthless in regards. He doesn't care if your name's Mo Salah, Trent Arnold. He'll take you off because he's thinking ahead. He's thinking, I'm going to need those minutes. And I think whilst we're celebrating that right now, the real, the real results are going to be seen at the close of the season, where traditionally people like Salah have run out of legs, where they've run out of steam and they're running on fumes. And I think you're going to see a more effective Salah deeper into the season or closer to the end of the season. And I think that's where it's really going to come to the fore that he's managed this team so well. And people forget that with his Feyenoord team, he was also very, very good at keeping people fit. I mean, look at Konate as an example. Last season, Konate couldn't really play more than 3 or 4 or 5 games in a row before there's some kind of injury niggle. And he seems to be managing that, in the right way. And I think that's going to be pivotal for us this season. If you take a look at Man City, you take a look at Arsenal, they're suffering right now because they've had critical injuries to key players at the wrong time. We suffered from it the season after we won the league, where we barely had a midfield. We had Hendo and Fabinho playing as centre-backs till they got injured. And then we had to bring in reserves to play at centre-back. So I think it's key. He's man management in terms of minutes, and his tactical changes that he makes have been very, very exemplary.
Yeah, I think the change in system as well has helped with that. It's not 110 miles an hour football constantly for 90 minutes. And that, as the season goes on, breaks players down. This is very much slow, methodical, death by 1,000 cuts kind of style, which I actually quite prefer personally. Dan, there's some people that just will not give praise for somebody like Darwin Nunez or Dominic Szoboszlai. Even if he scores a goal, apparently it was a near miss. We know who those people are and capable of giving praise where praise is due. I was one of those people that didn't want to give praise to Curtis Jones until he started proving me wrong. Today, however, he had a bit of a shit game, which has been his problem. He 2 or 3 good games, then he just drops. Anyways, we'll move on from that, because how did you view, my opinion on leaving Darwin Nunez on was there to occupy space to allow Salah and Diaz, the dribblers, the pace and the threat, because it was very much that Southampton kind of sat and set up in a compact way that they didn't want anything going through the centre. And Liverpool set up in a way that we wanted to attack the wings, which then kind of leaves a person like Darwin Nunez in no man's land, and essentially left Curtis Jones there as well. And other than Szoboszlai's goal, he didn't necessarily have an awful lot of attacking output. Again, his off-ball work was fantastic, but the attacking output wasn't really there, and it was due to a mistake that he got that goal. How did you view the man management, and would you be of the same opinion that Darwin's doing a bit of a thankless job at the moment, where it's the off-ball work that he's doing, and it won't show up in a stat sheet as an assist?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that on the first part about not giving praise, I think certain people have certain biases when it comes to players that they either will challenge over their watching them, they will adopt a more holistic view of the player, or they will see every single iteration of that player proving their previously established bias correct. And every counter argument is just a outlier blip on the graph. I think for Nunez, it comes down to expectation. I think if you're expecting Alan Shearer / Kylian Mbappe / Erling Haaland, I don't think he's that. I don't think he'll ever be that. I don't think he even was that when we bought him. He was very much someone that was about to blow up, but he was definitely not the finished product. As I've kind of watched him, I've kind of come to the realization that he's probably somewhere between Emil Heskey and Didier Drogba in the sense that what he brings is a overall threat and presence that you just don't get from so many different players. And where he has improved since Klopp first bought him is that his overall general play has improved. His pressing has improved massively. He is making better runs. He's not getting offside as much. He's very tactically aware and switched on. I think that, obviously we have some cases last year where he made a mistake, like in the United game, trying to win the ball, and he loses the ball, and it leads to, I think, United's third goal, and that may have been the FA Cup game. But for the most part, like, Darwin's like a very tactically switched on player. Same thing with Szoboszlai in many ways. When we first bought him, people were expecting, the Gerrard regen, etc. And then, he has 2-3 really good months, gets injured, comes back, is good for a game, gets injured, comes back, and has been kind of hit and miss for the most part. But his off the ball running is important for this team. And there's always just going to be one or two players where you've just decided are just not good or not up to Liverpool's quality. And that usually corresponds to, I want X player because this player is not good enough. Oh crap.
Yeah. Shiny new toy syndrome is the way that I view it.
Exactly. It's tiny syndrome. Sorry. What would come right there? Oh. Yeah, it's shiny toy syndrome in the sense that, in the sense that your judgment of that player has been, I would say, clouded by the fact that you want this other player instead. And I think that you can go all the way back to Jordan Henderson with this team, and James Milner was saying, like, why, like, Wadabo Fekir would be a better player, or we should buy Bruno Fernandes because we don't have a 10 in our team, and we need a box to box 8/10. So in terms of management, I think it's funny because I don't think I don't think Slot really had a choice in this game, in the sense that he doesn't really have a very deep bench right now. So I think leaving Darwin was probably the best option of any option. If Jota was fit, would he have brought him on? It's possible in the 65th minute. I do think that Slot's gotten pretty much all the management right up to this point, apart from maybe the Forest game, which I think is the biggest example of getting it wrong. But I think he got it wrong in the sense that he made too many changes at the wrong times. So and that's kind of where I think Slot's been a lot better at that now, since that Forest game. Honestly, the one thing I'll say about the Southampton game and Slot so far is that if you have a certain bias of a player, they have done nothing to disprove that bias of you, apart from maybe Gravenberch, where, but even still, as we've seen from certain individuals, that those that have already established biases of what Ryan Gravenberch is as a player have not adjusted their biases, and no amount of statistical data or visual or watching the game will tell you otherwise. I do, and the thing is, at the end of the day, it's Slot's call because he's the manager, and he's top of the league of 2 leagues, 8 points clear, which we have not done since 1920 when we won the league at 99 points with the highest amount of points difference between first and second place at the earliest possible time that you can win a league title. And that's something. So they're obviously doing something right, for a team that is full of players that aren't Liverpool quality or Liverpool or top of the league or top in Europe or elite or world class or insert adjective here saying that they're good. They've been doing pretty well for them so far. So either the fundamental assumption is wrong, or maybe the league is just a bit crap right now, and we should just accept that Liverpool are going to be potentially win their second Premier League title in a crap league team. That'll make all the Arsenal and City fans feel better.
Oh, I'm sure it will, and it'll make all the people that feel that we didn't win the transfer window just that much better, and I can't wait for that. I genuinely hope that we don't sign anybody in January and go on and win the league just on spite.
Oh, Steve, you know right now that City are going to announce Martin Zubimendi on January 1st. Everyone's going to for a signing, and City still won't win the league. Because Zubimendi's going to go there, and he's going to probably be good, and then he's going to be a bit crap, and he's going to get injured, and then City are going to get second, and then we're going to talk about no ambition. Liverpool need to buy X, Y, Z. If they don't buy Baleba, if they don't buy
if we don't put £100 million on Baleba, we're not ambitious at all. And if we don't then go and put £100 million on Evan Ferguson, then we're just screwed altogether. And then if we don't go put £100 million
Evan Ferguson, the next Wayne Rooney, Rooney, he's about 40 goals. He's about 40 goals shy of where Rooney was at his age, though. 50 goals.
I know, right? And then if we don't go and put another £100 million into Salah's contract, we just can't compete. We just can't continue. Like
I will say this, and I think this is the most important. If Darwin Nunez's ceiling is if Darwin Nunez is just Emil Heskey, that's fine. Like Emil Heskey was a great player for Liverpool, and the fact that people don't remember that is kind of sad because he was a very good player.
He was a fantastic player.
And if Dominic Szoboszlai at the end of the day is just a slightly more handsome version of Jordan Henderson, we won every trophy with Jordan Henderson. So, who cares? Like, okay, he's a Hungarian version of Jordan Henderson with smaller feet and better hair. Like that's fine.
And better
like,
looking.
and better looking. Like, I wouldn't shag Jordan, but Dom has it coming. Dom has it coming one day.
Yeah, fair enough. The way that I view it is just as Stitch has mentioned it, people are looking at it from X's and O's and that point of view. In that, he's a striker, he costs this much, he needs to be scoring X amount of goals. And it's not that at all. It's very much, there's so much nuance to it of what a player should be doing and stuff that doesn't show up in a stats sheet at the end of a game. And I am one of the biggest advocates for stats that you can find. But when it comes to a player like Darwin, if Darwin is occupying space and pulling centre-backs into a place, or pulling a full-back and a centre-back, or even keeping the mind of a centre-back occupied, that all of a sudden allows Mo Salah or Luis Diaz to slip in behind, and now all of a sudden they have a goal. That won't show up on a stat sheet. However, what it will show up on is the tape and what a Liverpool and what the Liverpool coaching staff will see and will continue to keep picking. Now, people will say, it's because Jota isn't there. Ironically, if you want to look at it, Diogo Jota's conversion rate this season alone, I think I checked this before Nunez surpassed him in minutes. Jota's conversion rate in this season is 15%. Nunez's conversion rate this season is 25%. Now, last season, Nunez's conversion rate was 10%, and everybody said he needs to stop taking so many shots and actually start being clinical. He's done that this season. He's actually reduced. He needed to take 8 shots to score a goal last season. Now he takes 3 on average across the whole season so far, and his efficiency has skyrocketed. And people give out because, he's not scoring. But he done what everybody asked. Everybody said he needs to be more efficient. He needs to be calmer. He needs to take his chances. That's what he's doing. And just nobody seems to be happy about it. You can't please everybody, unfortunately. But we're going to leave it there just before the hour hits. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Just over 3,000 people watching across Twitter and X at the moment. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure to have your notifications on so that you never miss out on a stream or a video. We will be back again tomorrow from 7:30 p.m. We will have our pre-game on Tuesday. We will have our post-game on Wednesday at 10 p.m. for the Real Madrid game. Next Saturday, Richie will be here with your pre-game before we face Manchester City on Sunday. And we'll have our post-game at 7:30 on Sunday following that game. Make sure you stick around for that. Make sure you have your notifications on. If you're watching currently on Twitter, jump over to our YouTube page and you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. Thank you guys so much. For myself, Dan, Stitches, and Harry, we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye-bye.